So in this video, we're going to continue our discussion of composition and aggregation. If you haven't watched the previous videos where I go over the scenario that I'm presenting, you should do that. But so we have this company class, and then inside here we have the CEO class, all right? So we've talked about sort of like the ramifications of what that means for like constructors, for the toString method. So now we're going to talk about the equals method, okay? So if I want to have two companies equal to one another, right, I'm going to go ahead and override the equals method. So I'm going to, down here, I'm going to do a public Boolean equals, and it's going to accept this object O, okay? All right, so just like any other equals thing, the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to check to make sure that the incoming object has the same type as a company. So we'll say if O instance of company, all right. So if it's an instance of company, then we're going to go ahead and do the downcast. Company C equals company, okay. And now we're going to do some comparisons. So what would constitute two companies being equal? Okay, well, maybe if they have the same name, the same number of employees, and the same CEO, right? Okay, so good grief, the scroll bar is terrible. Okay, so all right. So we'll say Boolean same name equals, let's actually do it like this. We'll say if name dot equals, and then we'll do C dot, do we have a getter for, okay, yeah, we have a getter, okay. So we'll say if name dot equals C dot get name. All right, so that's the first thing that we want to check. All right, and num employees equals C dot get num employees. All right, and now here's the part that gets a little bit weird. Okay, is now we have a CEO object. Okay, so how do I know if two CEO objects are the same? Well, what I could do is I can put an equals method over here in CEO as well. Okay, now I don't have to do that, but that's what I'm going to do. So public Boolean equals object O. All right, and so we're going to do the same kind of thing here. Is we're going to do if O instance of CEO, then we're going to go ahead and do the downcast and say CEO C equals CEO O. Okay, and then we'll say if C dot, all right, and so we'll say CEOs are the same if they have the same name and the same salary. Okay, maybe you have a John Smith who makes 100K versus a John Smith who makes 25K, and so maybe those would be two different CEOs. I don't know. Okay, so we'll say if C dot C dot name dot equals let's see. I guess I'll just do if name dot equals C dot get name. There we go, like that. Okay, and salary is a double, so we don't need to do the dot equals for that. So we'll do salary equals C dot get salary. Okay, then we're going to return true. Okay, and if all right, so in other words, that stuff has to be all equal. The name and the salary has to be the same for it to return true. Otherwise, it's going to come down to the bottom here and just return false. Okay. So let's make sure that I don't have any problems. All right, CEO looks fine. So now I need to finish my company. So now I'll say, all right, if the name is equal and the number of employees, this should be equals. Okay, I need to be careful there. And now we can do CEO. So we have an instance variable called CEO, and we'll do dot equals, and then we'll do c.getCEO. Okay. Return true. Otherwise, will return false. Okay, so what is the point of all this? The point is that if you have an equals method in a situation where you have aggregation or composition going on here, then it's possible that you're going to have to compare elements of this other object to see whether or not the two items are actually equal. So in the case of a company, not only do we need the company name to be the same and the number of employees to be the same, but we also want to make sure that their CEOs are the same. And the CEOs have more properties than just a simple string or something like that. They have all these additional ones. So what we did in this case is we implemented an equals method down in the CEO class as well. Okay, so I guess the major takeaway from this is that your equals method for when you start having these complex objects that have all kinds of additional objects as instance variables, they're going to become more complicated. Okay, there's going to have to be more things that you look at in order for you to determine whether or not those two things are actually equal. Okay, so let's go ahead and compile that, and now we'll just basically demonstrate that our method works. So in this case, I should be able to create another blank company. Okay, and we'll see if here, I'll comment this out for right now. So let's see if C3 and C4 are the same. All right. They should have the same name, which is just blank. They should have the same number of employees, 0. And their CEO should have the same name, of just blank, and the same salary of 0. So these should be equal. So let's see. So we will say Boolean same equals C3 dot equals C4. And then we will do J option pane dot show message dialog same. All right. So we would expect this to print out true if we've done things correctly. So let's see. All right. And sure enough, it prints out true. So yes, our blank companies are the same. All right. So let's do a slightly different example here. We will do company C5 equals new company Microsoft. Okay. And we will do C5 dot set num employees. Do we have a constructor that accepts? Looks like all we have is that one. Okay, that accepts the name. All right, so we have to do set num employees. We'll make this 100. Obviously, there's more than 100 people who work for Microsoft, but that's okay. And then we'll do CEO. CEO1 equals new CEO. And here I think we have a constructor for... We have a constructor for the name and the salary. So we can do Bill Gates, even though he isn't actually the CEO, and 100. Okay. And so if I then do, if I copy all of this, and in this case, what we'll do is we'll make this C6, and we'll make this CEO2, okay? So the other thing that I need to do is I need to do C5.setCEO, CEO1, and then I need to do C6.setCEO, CEO2. Okay, so now what I have is I have two companies. I've got the C5 company that's Microsoft with 100 employees with the CEO of Bill Gates and a salary of 100. And then I have C6, which has all the same information. So these should also be the same, okay? So I should be able to just do this same equals C5 dot equals C6. And just copy this. And again, this should print out true because I believe that these companies are exactly the same. So let's check it and see. All right. And sure enough, it prints out true. Now, all I should have to do is change one little thing in one of these, and then they should not be equal. So like, for example, if instead of naming this Microsoft, let's say I had Microsoft with two T's on the end, okay? Now, these companies are slightly different, right? And so if I were to compile and run this, you will see that, oh, now they're not the same, all right? And likewise, okay, if I was to go in here and I'll change this back to Microsoft, but let's say that I change the CEO slightly. So maybe this Bill Gates, instead of making 100, he makes 101. Okay, again, if I compile and run this, you should see that, in fact, they are not equal, okay? Because my equals method here in company is comparing everything. It's comparing the name of the company, it's comparing the number of employees in the company, and it's comparing the CEO. And my CEO comparison is looking for a name and a salary that matches, okay? So again, the point of all of this is that when you have a composition or aggregation kind of scenario where you have objects that have other objects in there, your equals method in terms of implementation becomes a little bit more complicated, and you have to check for a number of different things. So there's going to be one more video in this series that's going to talk about getters and setters. So we're going to have some additional changes we're going to need to make to the getters and setters. So that'll be in the next video.